African proverb says the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel the warmth. What time in your life have you been closest to starting the fire? For some reason or another, my mother hated me. As a little girl, I could never understand why she treated me so much worse than my 3 other siblings, and I would often go up to my grandmother and ask her, why doesn't my mama love me? She never could give me a straight answer and would tell me, your mama loves you in the only way she knows how. That answer confused me because she loved my siblings just fine. Disclaimer: her love was toxic AF, and she did a different type of damage to my other siblings. Now when I say that my mother treated me badly, it started out with her picking fights with me. She would constantly nitpick at everything I did, chastising me, and at the end of the day punishing me harshly for something that could have been a gentle scolding. When I got older, she started cussing at me, and calling me names. She would often ignore me for days on end, and when she would talk to me it would be to make me the butt end of a bad joke, or to tell me she hated me. Yes, my mother looked me dead in my eyes and told me she hated me. Disclaimer number 2, she was a drug addict and alcoholic, and she loves to claim all the emotional abuse she put me though as a child was the effects of the drugs, and it wasn't even that bad. It was things like that that really began to tear at me after a while. All sorts of terrible things she did to me growing up, the terrible things she said, and how she ignored me constantly. All of it very different than how she treated my other 3 siblings. She was very close with one of my brothers and my sister. She would spend time with them constantly, take them anywhere, buy them anything that they wanted, and it made me resent them. My sister would sometimes rub it in my face that mom loved her more. It was her way of having power over me, and it was one of the things that made my rage bubble over on innocent people. I just wanted to be loved and accepted. I wanted to be cared for and cherished as a child should be, and when I didn't get that, I plotted on how I was going to get her love and affection. In my screwed up mind, I thought that if I got rid of my older brother and younger sister, I would be one of the only people left for her to love. I planned on killing my brother. How screwed up is that? It wasn't just some thought that passed through my head, it was a constant idea, a plan that I was putting into place to end his life so that I could make room in my mother's heart for me. I feel ashamed writing it out. It was a dark time in my life, and I was also incredibly mentally ill. My brother was addicted to pain medications, and my parents were trying desperately to get him clean at the time. Ironically, at the same time he was going on a drug-induced rampage, my sister had shattered her leg on a trampoline. She was on some pretty heavy pain pills, and while my mother was doing everything in her power to keep my brother away from the drugs, she would leave my sister, and her drugs, in my care. So one day, while my mother was out dealing with my brother and my sister was sleeping, I took the rest of her pills. My sister was super afraid of becoming addicted to drugs after watching what my mother and brother were going through, so there was a ton left, and I waited for my brother to come back. When I heard him come through his window, his room was next to mine, I went into the kitchen and made him a glass of juice. Earlier in the day I had crushed up the pills into a powder, and I mixed them into the juice. I went up to his room, knocked on the door, and offered him the vagina tail of various prescription drugs. He took the juice, and right before he was about to drink it I had thought, how could I do this to my own brother? I snatched the drink back, and it spilled all over the carpet. He was high and super pissed, but at least he was alive. I never tried anything like that again. It felt so sick, wrong, evil. I mean, what type of person thinks about killing their brother? Besides, my brother dying wouldn't make my mother love me anymore, she would have just resented me for living instead of him. So that's the sad, sick story of how I almost executed my brother. I didn't actually carry through with it, obviously, and I guess everyone lived happily ever after. My brother got clean and now has a happy family. I'm in college, my sister's leg healed up nicely, and my mom left us after a while. But that's a story for another time. Wow. That is an incredible story. Thank you for your bravery in writing it out. I think if more people hear others going through stuff like this and what came of it, they won't feel so alone, and it helps. But very few ever speak of it for fear of repercussions. I guess that's what makes the anonymity of Reddit so wonderful. I have 2 sisters. One older, and one younger. My mom worked hard to make sure each of us felt special and loved. My dad? Not so much. He called my older sister Princess and my little sister was referred to as Little Buddy. For whatever reason, I got kind of forgotten about. I didn't mind most of the time. I found my dad annoying, demanding, and at times unreasonable. I hated the way he bullied my mom and would lash out about things that didn't make sense. Basically, I thought of my dad as a total brat. He'd have a bad day at work, and would find someone to take it out on. Usually, my mom and I, but I still tried. I'd try to cuddle up with him, feeling hurt when he'd shrug me off and tell me I need to shower. I made gifts for him. Got good grades, won poetry contests. Won awards through Bible quiz. Never argued. But it never seemed to work. Before long, he'd find something to yell at me about. Things that usually didn't make sense. If my little sister and I fought, the whole thing was my fault. My feet turn in. I hated when my dad would come to my sporting events, because seeing me run with inward turned feet seemed to be humiliating for him. One time I was running from one base to another, feeling exhilaration because I'd done it. I'd hit a home run. The smile died on my face when I heard my dad yell, "Run with your feet straight. You look stupid." As a teen, my mom really stepped up and started insisting that he was going to leave me alone. He was never physically abusive, but the way he talked to you made you feel like he was trying to say something that would break you. When I was 15, he was almost successful. I went through a couple of really bad months. A friend died, my dog died, we moved, and my mental health was tanking. A week after my friend died, car accident, my dad asked, "So when are you going to get over it?" It took me by surprise, because at that time, I wasn't crying or acting out. I was just sitting there, eating dinner with the family. My mom immediately reacted, gasping out a surprised, "John." And the two of them began fighting again, over my dad's need to mess with me. I sat there, head down on the table, thinking, I'm not allowed to be sad. I'm not allowed to feel happy. I can't get mad. I'm in pain, and he finds it annoying. Just leave me alone, Dad. Leave me alone. That's when it clicked. My dad, for whatever reason, seemed to hate me. I could try to make him like me, but it wasn't going to work. As I got older, my goal became to avoid him. His seemed to be to forge a relationship with me with the sole purpose of having a target for his need to bully. We were never going to have a healthy father-daughter relationship. That's when it clicked. It's not me, it's him. My sisters could like and love him, but I didn't need to respect him. I was done trying to please him, trying to do the right things, trying to be the daughter that my dad seemed to want. Fast forward almost 10 years later. After the birth of my son, my dad had tried to begin a new relationship with me, because for whatever reason, he latched onto my kid. For the sake of my kid, I let my dad have a relationship with him, but I was always monitoring, waiting for my son to develop a personality that would change the way my dad saw him. There was no way I was going to let my dad do to my son what he did to me. Fortunately, my dad died before the change could happen. I sat in the back at his funeral, dry-eyed and satisfied. Of course my sisters were upset. They had good relationships. But for me and my mom, it kind of felt like the wicked witch was at long last dead. No more stress. No more unreasonable expectations. The eggshells we'd been walking on were swept away, and we could be content. I have an uncle in West Virginia that I started to see as my father figure. At first, I jokingly would call him Dad, testing the waters, waiting for him to remind me that he actually has kids, and doesn't need an adopted daughter. I go see him once a year. But I always felt like maybe he sees my need to see him as a dad to be annoying. A couple of weeks ago, I asked him if he was coming up for Christmas. He said he couldn't. But then he said, "I love you, my daughter." Sorry this was so long. I guess I needed to get that out. I love you, my daughter. Oh my God, that's the sweetest ending to this effed up story. I used to work in fast food, and was the only person in the store that didn't smoke. Everyone else got to take a break to smoke, but since I didn't smoke, I wasn't allowed to. Eventually, I spoke to the owner about it and was rebuffed, so I went over their heads to the company board. Owner got his ass chewed out for rebuffing me and I wound up getting a huge bonus my next paycheck, but when they discovered I reported them, I got fired immediately. Turns out they've been violating company policy in food prep and storage, so I filed another report to corporate. Store got shut down for months and my former boss got fined 6 figures. When I managed a pizza place 20 years ago, I used to give non-smokers a Coke break to go drink a soda. It never seemed fair to me that the smokers would go F off for 10 to 20 minutes while everyone else worked. Plus, they always wanted to go smoke as soon as rush was over and it was time to clean. That's exactly what they did. And I'd have everything cleaned, restocked, and ready to go before they got back. I love it. Wife was a senior staff for a local science fiction convention. Not only was she an unpaid volunteer, she had to take a vacation day off work and pay for her hotel room and parking. On the morning that the convention started, she was setting up the first of the 3 rooms she was responsible for: manual labor, moving tables, setting up shelves and loading them with stuff, and somebody came in, took her ID badge off her desk, and brought it to the convention's lost and found. Convention LF lady told wife that lost badges have a $5 fee to get them back. Wife looked at the badge, looked at her, and said, "Keep it. I'm going home. Have a nice convention." Wife was about 25 feet down the hall when LF lady caught up to her and returned her badge. Wow. It was like they were trying to burn down their own village at that point. More like setting a nuke on their own village. The lady is working for free, and you have the nerve to make her pay you some made-up fee. After stealing the badge. Exactly. Good on ops for saying F you to them and showing them that she's not ready to put up with their bullcrap. Yeah, it's like they gave gasoline, matches, and a map showing weak points on buildings to the non-embraced child. This is my room on the 3rd floor, plus there are no fire escapes on this side of the building. Don't leave us hanging. Did she keep walking or stay for the convention? Does she volunteer for them anymore? Sorry. Yes, she stayed, and yes, she's still there every year. Thanks for the update. Well, they are lucky to have her, and for one night she gets a big old bed all to herself. $5 fee to get them back. Jesus Christ. You literally have the badge right there. Didn't have to make a new one, there was no extra work or trouble caused by it. A member of the public returned it. Hope she walked away still. Surely it must have been clear to her what the convention was all about. Emo, once something like that happens, you don't come back even if they fix the issue. It's supposed to be a deterrent so that they keep better watch over their badges. It's treating adults like children who need to be punished. I can absolutely attest to being around people who were love-starved and then subsequently self-sabotaging or otherwise destructive. In a softer sense, if I have felt rejected, I have felt peace in sort of burning bridges to find myself. May the bridges you burn light the way forward. Just make sure you're off the bridge and no longer need it prior to burning it. We'll burn that bridge when we get to it. May the bridges you burn be unoccupied and devoid of structural necessity. Much better. My boss said something like that to me once. I said, F that bridge, I'll swim if I have to. Kind of reaching that point. For so long, I put off burning a bridge I needed to burn because I was still on it. Took me an embarrassingly long time to realize I'll never get off it by crossing it, the other side is a dead end. So now I'm building a metaphorical life raft and getting ready to blow the bridge up. I'm building said metaphorical raft out of the metaphorical bridge, so I just got to be careful not to collapse said bridge until my raft is done. But then I'm burning this bridge and everyone else on it, and rushing away on tides of, okay, I've run out of allegory. While ideally you don't burn a bridge until you're off of it, that is something you can do if you need to. Was going to post that badass saying if you didn't already. We live in a world with such nonsensical bureaucracy that sometimes it's best to cut and run for something more real and meaningful. It rings true for a cook like I am. No matter your references, your skills speak for themselves. It's less true for corporate jobs where resume means everything. It's hard not to burn bridges when you got that motivational fire beneath your feet. Working in public accounting as an auditor. 65+ hour weeks, getting yelled at by clients for things that aren't your fault, getting chewed out by your manager for being over/under budgeted hours for a client, staying in hotels 5 days a week during busy season, eating poorly because you never had time to cook. Let's just say one of the best days of my life was when I got laid off from that place, which opened the door for a great opportunity with none of the issues listed above. Isn't being treated like a nuisance when requesting supporting documents just the best? Especially for doing walkthroughs, tongue, and when you realize the client didn't give everything needed, it's suddenly you who must be at fault, and it seems that both the client staff and your own in charges are ganging up on you? Also, the very idea of time budgets can F right off. What do you do now, if I may ask? How many busy seasons did you go through? I work in corporate accounting now, better pay, much lower stress, and 40-hour weeks. Went through 2 busy seasons. I don't know how people can make a long-term career of it. There's no work-life balance whatsoever. The time I was working at a psychiatric hospital and the CEO assumed I smoked drugs because I had dreadlocks. I worked hard for those patients and they trusted me. I shielded the hospital from nearly weekly riots of patients. After being unfairly judged and made to look dispensable, I almost set the inmates loose on the asylum. But then, I realized that it was selfish and those people I cared so much about would be punished for fighting my fight for me and basically would be the firewood for my fire. Just go on vacation for a month. Then they'll know what you do for them. On my weekends, it was me and one other counselor. On my weekends off, they had to have 4 counselors. They knew how much trust I earned with those patients. They paid me $900 a month to make the 45-minute commute when the hospital moved a couple counties over. They knew what a good counselor I was. But I had dreadlocks and wore silk shirts and shiny ties to work in a psych hospital where ties are absolutely verboten. The CEO thought I was a reckless druggie. No dude, I just treat the people like they are people. That was almost 20 years ago and I still have patients from that time who contact me. Ties are a safety hazard. Like around machinery. The police wear climb-on ties for a reason. What are ties and climb-on ties in this context? I think he meant clip-on ties. I take it you've never tried to climb a tie. I'm guessing there are cases of patient abuse and neglect in your hospital? There were a few, but not nearly as bad as some places. I think that was another reason I wasn't liked. I would report it if I saw it. I also tried to unionize the orderlies and low-level counselors. And there is the real issue. Management will always give you some weasel words rational reason as to why you are being targeted, i.e. the dreads, but never the real reason. In their eyes you are a union troublemaker. But hey, good for you, stick with your principles. As someone who spent a lot of time inpatient, those places really could use more people like you. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.